Good afternoon, everyone. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com at 2:39 p.m. on Sunday. A very unusual, almost eerie feeling in Mackey Arena, it not even being 3 o'clock in the afternoon yet. Nevertheless, here we are following Purdue's 104 to 68 win over Nebraska here in West Lafayette. This is your goldenblack.com rap video. It is brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Union Club Hotel, whose locations in both Seattle and Eugene, Oregon. I will be staying in here this week. I'm now told there are no locations in Seattle, Washington, or Eugene, Oregon. Not sure why. Anyway, next time you're in West Lafayette, please keep the Union Club Hotel in mind. We appreciate their support as always. That was a very clunky delivery, wasn't it? Nothing clunky about the way Purdue played today here against Nebraska. I think you might remember after the Auburn game, I said that I think Purdue's okay here because this isn't a team that's going to get shaken by the foreign feeling that is non-conference losses. And the Big Ten schedule was going to set up early for them to have some success, build some momentum, and then you start taking on some of the heavyweights in the league. You start making some of your more difficult trips, and suddenly you're in a pretty good spot. And that is precisely what has happened. Purdue is playing really well right now. They have not played a heavyweight team in the Big Ten yet. That is the context that probably needs to be kept in mind. But this is how the schedule laid out. We'll talk about the schedule a little bit more later. But Purdue has gotten trips to Minnesota and Rutgers and home games against Northwestern and Nebraska in these games since Big Ten play resumed, and Purdue has been a machine in all of them. The only thing that has held Purdue back is its inability to make enough threes to blow people out. That was the problem at Rutgers. That could have been a 20-point game in the first half. That was the issue at Minnesota. That could have been a 10 to 15-point game in the first half. In the second half, the floodgates opened. Purdue is playing really, really well right now. They're playing tremendously on offense. They're playing even better on defense. The awakening defensively this team has had has been eye-opening, to say the least. A lot of it has to do with the offense not turning the ball over, but it goes way beyond that. Watching these guys defend, this is the most connected, this is the most active, this is the most anticipatory, which may or may not be a word, but it's my way of saying prepared and engaged defensively I've seen Purdue in years. I think the last couple of years Ross-Ade covered some things up, and I think Purdue has come to the realization that, hey, we got to be better because that dude's not back there. That's probably not exactly how it was framed in their inner monologues or articulated in their inner monologues, but I think that's probably the gist of this. Purdue experienced some real defensive problems early in the season. Their lack of rim protection, clearly was exposed a number of times. Their lack of size on the interior, their defensive rebounding concerns that are tied in part to that size were exposed some. And ever since Auburn, whether Auburn was the turning point or not, this is not a group that enjoys being embarrassed, and Purdue was embarrassed by Auburn. And ever since then, this team has been really good defensively. It has been really, really engaged defensively. It has been on top of things. You can literally see the voice bubbles, the thought bubbles over their heads when they're defending as a team, saying they're about to do this, and then Purdue is one step ahead of it, which is half the battle. And you just can't say enough about what Purdue has done defensively, while once again not only having the metrics to make them look like one of the best, most efficient offenses in the country, but passing the look test. There were times in some of those losses that are now being proven to be probably mostly opponent-specific issues more than those teams just beating Purdue or anything that Purdue wasn't doing well enough. It was those opponents that were real problems for Purdue. I think if you played Texas A&M again tomorrow, you got a better whistle in that game. I will keep reminding you that I think that was a huge part of that game. I think Purdue wins that game again today. I think you'd love to get another crack at Penn State at State College, things like that, but that's not the way this works. Purdue lost those 4 games prior to the resumption of Big Ten play, and I think it was just those styles of play giving Purdue's problems. Purdue right now does not look like there's any style of play that would give it problems. Braden Smith is playing at an absolutely unbelievable level, the best point guard play I've probably seen, not at Purdue, but just in college basketball in general. In the Big Ten, certainly. You know, I've seen Cassius Winston, Mateen Cleaves, Aaron Kraft, all these other just luminary point guards, Yogi Ferrell, in this conference. And, Darren Williams, I'm putting him in some pretty ridiculous company here. But I think he's playing at an unbelievably high level right now. He's got complete command of all these games. And he is playing like, the All-American and the Big Ten Player of the Year that he was pegged to be in the preseason. And just having an unbelievable run here. Part of a very good season, obviously, but just an unbelievable run he's on here. It felt to me like, he scores 8 points. And it felt to me like the only reason he was shooting was to make sure that Nebraska didn't change the way it was defending, because the 14 assists reflect the command he had over the way Nebraska was defending. And he didn't want them to change. So he was taking those jumpers just to make sure that Nebraska kept thinking that he might. That's just my theory. I didn't ask him that, nor would he have answered it probably had I. But you got a really well-balanced offense here today. Fletcher Lawyer, 5 of 6 from 3. Trey Kaufman-Renn, unbelievable game for Trey Kaufman-Renn. 15 points. That's not the unbelievable part. 7 assists. 0 turnovers. That is really, really something. The number of times a Purdue big guy has had more than 3 assists, 4 assists in a game, in my frame of reference, which is basically the entirety of Matt Painter's time here, plus a few years at the end under Gene Cady. That is an absolutely remarkable statistic, and just showed you the mastery Purdue had of Nebraska's defensive system that has given them real problems over the years. These haven't been heavyweight teams that Purdue has played in the Big Ten here during this winning streak, but they are the pain in the ass teams. Purdue has had real difficulties over the years with Northwestern, Rutgers, Nebraska, because of the way they play, because of the way they can bog things down. They can make games ugly at times, and they could just win rock fights. And that has been as much of a problem for Purdue as beating Michigan State in East Lansing, or beating Indiana in Bloomington, or beating Indiana here, beating whoever. Purdue's done well against the name brands in the Big Ten. It's been these teams that suck all the enjoyment out of basketball at times that Purdue has struggled with here and there. And when you look at the way this is lined up, it was Northwestern, Rutgers, Nebraska, those 3 pain-in-the-ass teams all in a row here. So this was kind of a bit of a revenge tour. But this is a bit of a different Purdue team. Zach Edey's not the gigantic, sometimes stationary target that he was when some of those teams gave Purdue trouble just by beating on him. This is a much more dynamic offense. That doesn't mean a better offense. It means a dynamic offense. Braden Smith has got these games on a string. Trey Kaufman-Renn, you have to guard him a little bit more all over the floor than you probably did some of Purdue's 7-footers. But it so often against these teams comes down to the three-pointer. And I said before the game that if Purdue makes some early threes, they could crack this game wide open very quickly. Because what Nebraska does defensively is to sit that. I'm throwing my pen. Hopefully it doesn't explode like the last one. What Nebraska does defensively is it holds that 5th guy. Purdue's doing a lot of this too this year, if not exclusively this. Braden Smith is that low man, kind of helping. But the way Nebraska defends, puts that extra guy in the lane and leaves him there, just stations him down there to come and meet the pick and roll, or just kind of hover over a big guy's shoulder that takes one more guy away from the perimeter. So there's going to be open looks from three, as there have always been. When you look at Nebraska's metrics, more than 50% of the points they've given up this season have come via the three-pointer. So this is a game where if Purdue is able to have one of those Mackey Arena shooting games where you just stick somebody in the oven from the opening tip, this game was going to crack wide open very early. That is precisely what happened. Purdue was 19 of 33 from three-point range for the game. That's probably a little bit inflated in terms of the attempt total because you had about 25 minutes of garbage time in this game, frankly. But in the first half, in which some of the first half was probably garbage time too, if we're being honest, Purdue was 8 of 13 from three-point range in the first half. It was just one of those games at Purdue where they just can't miss. It happens in Mackey Arena sometimes. And I don't know if there's really any shame in it for Nebraska. This just happens a couple times a year, and has happened I don't know how many times since Purdue has been really, really good. It's just kind of the nature of playing Purdue in this building sometimes. But Fletcher Lawyer, C.J. Cox, the kid is a firecracker. He is. Look, he makes 5 of 7 threes. He's 9 of 11 from the floor. He gets 4 steals. Best thing he did in this game, this is probably overstatement because he got 23 points, made all those threes, really energized this team in this building with his shooting. But the best thing he did was he led the charge against Bryce Williams, who averages 19 points a game, and he finished with, I believe, 6. No, that's not right. 9. But also 4 turnovers. Okay, of his 9 points, okay, 2 of them came on free throws off of a technical foul on Miles Colvin for doing something that I think Braden Smith does every time he makes a shot. I really don't know, and I didn't get a good look at it. I didn't listen on the TV that was playing in front of me, or the YouTube TV, to see if there was any more context to what Colvin did. But he makes a 3, gets called for a technical. That's 2 of Bryce Williams' 9 points. There was another foul there that got him to the line that accounted for a few more of his points. But this is a guy who averages 19 points a game. He has 2 field goals. That is 1 more than Will Berg. That is 1 more than Sam King. That is the same amount as Brian Waddell and Raleigh Burgess and Jakari Harris. Yes, I'm comparing apples and oranges there, but I'm just putting it in perspective for you. This is another guy, Nick Martinelli and Brooks Barnheiser versus Northwestern, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper with Rutgers. Really high-end scorers in the Big Ten, guys who were averaging in the 20-point vicinity, that Purdue was just erasing. And that is in part individual effort, but it is in part preparation. And the best sign that's emerging here about this team is they are really preparing from a defensive perspective. They are really digging into their preparation. Their scouting reports, they're understanding their roles, they're helping one another, they're communicating in a way that 2 months ago they were not. This is the most connected defense I think Purdue has played in years, quite honestly. I always try to run it through my head whether I'm overstating something or not, and I'll tell you when I'm about to. But I can't think of a situation here these last couple of years when Purdue was this aligned with one another from a defensive perspective, this well prepared. And to be honest with you, what Nebraska does defensively, Purdue I think took some concepts from and has implemented itself. There's kind of a bit of an irony there that this was kind of an inside job for Purdue. They know this defensive scheme so well that they implemented it, but that also makes them uniquely qualified to stop it or to play against it. And I think you saw a little bit of that today. Purdue absolutely abused their help guy. Braden Smith is an absolute wizard at reading that guy. Trey Kaufman-Renn is getting better and better at reading that guy. I can't remember. I've been talking for 15 minutes, and I can't remember if I talked about the 7 assists and no turnovers yet. If I didn't, that is remarkable. You don't see that from a big guy. And Trey Kaufman-Moren's not a big guy per se. He's more of a all over the floor sort of guy. But nevertheless, nothing reflects the growth he's made as a player and his ability to handle the responsibility that comes with being Purdue's front court A1 option, scoring-wise and decision-making-wise, than this stat line from Trey Kaufman-Moren. 7 of 9 from the floor, 15 points, 7 assists, and no turnovers. That is like a 35 and 15 sort of game for Ross-Ade in terms of its impressiveness. And, of course, we took that for granted because he was doing it all the time. But that is a remarkable stat line. Speaking of taking things for granted, don't when it comes to what you're seeing from Braden Smith right now. This is not normal. Another 14 assists from him. I was talking to a few people before the game, and I was trying to remember prior to Braden Smith how many double-digit assist games I covered at Purdue. And keep in mind, I started around the end of Gene Katie's years. I've been here for the entirety of Matt Painter. I have to go back and look at Austin Parkinson. He had some games where he had a lot of assists. I remember Lewis Jackson doing it once. Maybe I'm forgetting a second time, but I remember Lewis Jackson doing it once. Braden Smith is doing it damn near every game, it seems like. This would have been his 18th, I think, double-digit assist game of his career. I think that now matches the program record, who I think Bruce Parkinson might hold, Austin's dad. I think that's correct. I skimmed the game notes last night looking for some superlatives. Braden Smith's going to break that all-time career record maybe this year. And to do that in less than 3 years would really be something. But this is not normal for a college player at this level. Sometimes in lower level college basketball, you see a guy here and there who just puts up astronomical assist numbers, but not at this level, and certainly not at Purdue, who is, motion historically has decentralized the assist. I think there were a couple of years where like Vince Edwards led Purdue in assists, but the point guard has never been the assist guy until Braden Smith. Lewis Jackson was really the only other really true point guard they had prior to Braden Smith. Now this has been something that is just really eye-opening at Purdue because it's so abnormal and so impressive. If he's not the best point guard in the country, I know it's not controversial to say that. I know that's not like a take or whatever, because a lot of people view him that way. But this is really something. When you take into account how he can score, the defensive impact he's making now as that guy Purdue just kind of has playing free safety, just roaming, just kind of wreaking havoc, just being a pain in everyone's ass. Really, really something. He's having an All-American season. The Big Ten Player of the Year thing is going to be, there's going to be a few people in that mix probably, but I don't see why, you would discount Braden Smith's chances to win that award that he was predicted to win. He's having a phenomenal season. Purdue's on a hell of a run here, and there's really no sign of it slowing down. Now comes a bit of a unique challenge in terms of going to Washington and then going to Oregon a week after you played on the other ocean. This should never happen. The East Coast trips and the West Coast trips should not happen within the span of like 2 weeks, in my opinion. Purdue looks up to it, sure they do, but this is just not an optimal thing to ask of college kids. This West Coast stuff is going to cost people games. It just is. It's going to decide league titles, because somebody's going to go west and lose a game they shouldn't lose at some point. Somebody's going to come east and lose a bunch of games that they shouldn't lose at some point, and it's going to influence the league more than geography should. And the unbalanced schedules already kind of weighted the scales randomly the past few years, and now this is just going to add to it even more. My computer is so bored with me that it has just gone to sleep. I'm now looking at Mac Sequoias, or whatever these are, redwoods, or some such thing, and I'm back. Anyway, so Purdue's got to go west. Washington is not good. Oregon is. So Purdue really needs to keep building on this momentum to come back with a couple wins from the West Coast. But this is, again, the Big Ten schedule was laid out in a way where prior to this West Coast trip, the opportunity was there for them to really build some momentum, really start off well, and that's precisely what Purdue's done. Purdue has started better than well, or restarted better than well. Purdue has looked every bit the Big Ten championship level team. It's going to have to do it against other contenders at some point, and I don't see anything in what Purdue's been doing here these last 4 games to think that they're going to be vulnerable when it comes to those games. So that's what I got. That was circular. That was way too long. It was probably nonsensical at times, but that's what you've come to expect from these ridiculous videos. So I will talk to you guys again from Seattle, whatever day that game is. I know I leave Tuesday. I don't know when the game is, and I don't know when the Oregon game is. I just know I have to fly from Chicago to Seattle, Seattle to Eugene to Chicago to get back, and we'll see if I can still stand up at the end of all this. Poor me, but this is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Thank you for watching, thank you for reading, thank you for listening, and thank you for processing our materials, however jet-lagged those materials may be. And I will talk to you guys again next week from somewhere in Bigfoot country. So once again, from Purdue's 104-68 win over Nebraska, Brian Neubert, once again, from goldenblack.com. Go sign up for our site. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, whatever else. Thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel once again for your support, as always. But we're going to have to work on those Pacific Northwest locations. Keep me posted. Thanks, everybody.